Hello and welcome back to our 10th and final week of season 2 of yTeam Stories. This week we are down in Tassie with the amazing Sophie Crothers. So can you please start by introducing yourself and letting us know how you got involved with yLead?
Hey everyone. I'm Sophie and I got involved with yLead in 2017 in January. So I was the school captain at my college, of St Patrick's College in Launceston, and we got sent off to this random conference on the mainland in Melbourne, and it was only my co-captain and I, and we were the only ones from Tasmania, and we didn't know anyone else, and it was super awkward. But yeah, I was just hooked after like one day at that ASLC, and since then I have mentored in Melbourne ASLCs twice, and I've mentored at the Brisbane one as well, and I volunteer in schools when I get a chance. So yeah, that's been me.
So you know me, you know that I love Tasmania, even though I haven't been there before. If I were to come and visit, what would be like the top 3 things that we would do together in like one day?
Well, if we're in Hobart, which is where I am at the moment for uni, I'd take you for a hike up Mount Wellington. So like Mount Wellington's like literally 5 kilometers away from my house, and there's all of these beautiful walks everywhere, and you can drive to the very, very summit and like look at the sunset and everything that's there. So I'd take you to Mount Wellington, probably hit up Salamanca markets on a Saturday morning, and it's basically just like a huge street full of like all of these like gorgeous little creations and like handmade goods and food and pastry. It's so good. And the other place I would take you would be to Mona, which is the super whack museum that we've got. It's basically like a private collection from this super rich guy, David Walsh, but he lets the public in to have a look at all of his artwork, and it's crazy. It's like a maze. They don't have any like standard maps or anything. All the staircases don't lead where you think they should, and you get lost in there for like hours. It's brilliant.
Oh my gosh, my mind has been blown. I know exactly what I'm going to do when borders are open, even though Tassie was definitely on the cards for me anyway. I'm so excited to hear your answer to this question. So, what is your spirit animal?
So I was thinking about this, and I really struggled with it. And I was like to my housemates, I was like, what animal am I? And they all immediately said, like consensus, that I'm a cat. And this is like the reasoning for it. I'm really independent, but like I love showing affection to the people that I choose to show affection to. And I like love napping, and I love my personal space, but I still like being around people and making me feel at home. So that was their response. I reckon I'll go with that.
If you could have dinner with any person, alive or dead, who would it be and what would you talk about?
So this is really sad because it's just happened, but my person would be Ruth Ginsburg, who just passed away in the US. She's just like such like a pillar of women's rights in America and for everyone as well. And there's this one quote from her about how being a lady is to be independent. And that was something that she was always taught. And I just think having like a sit down conversation with her about everything she's done for women's rights in America and across the world, and about her experience in the legal profession and stuff as well, because that's the kind of area I want to end up going into after I finish uni. And I think it would just be so cool to sit down and have a chat to her. So that's probably my answer.
On a similar note, if you could present a TED Talk, what would be your topic?
Oh, so like, don't even get me started. So like my area of like passion, like this is what I want to do with the rest of my life, is I want to basically reform the prison systems in Australia and find a way for them to be more rehabilitative and make sure that they're actually doing what the law says they're meant to do. So I would basically just give a TED Talk on how terrible it currently is and how it doesn't serve to protect anyone, and it doesn't serve to like help the people that need help to rehabilitate from being offenders and that kind of thing. I can literally talk about it for hours, but it's such a huge area, and I think it would make a really cool TED Talk. I don't know if there are any on it actually. I'll look at
What sparked your interest in that?
So actually when I was in grade 12, I wasn't sure what I like wanted to do at uni yet. I was like really torn between studying science or studying law. And I went to this super cool thing called Law Fest. Wow. And when we were there, one of the guest speakers was this woman called Rosalie Martin, and she's a speech pathologist and a criminologist as well. And she works in the prison in Tasmania, basically to help inmates to learn to read and write so that when they are released, they're then able to go out and like get jobs and stuff like that, because that's a huge barrier for so many people about why they end up back in prison. And so I was sitting there listening to her talk about how there's all of these people who literally just fall through the cracks of society, whether it be through education or from like their socioeconomic background and that kind of thing. And I was just sitting there going like, this is such a huge area that no one talks about. Everyone just accepts the sort of status quo of like, oh, this is how they are. This is how they've always been. And I just sat there and went, you know, that's not right. And I did a whole bunch of research into it. And I decided that, yeah, I was going to go to uni and study law so that I could do that as well.
I would love to be a guest in the audience at your TED Talk. I'd definitely buy a ticket. My next question is, what is a skill you have that you could teach to others?
How to have conversations with people that you don't agree with, and you both know that you don't agree with each other, but being able to have a conversation in a way that you both get to like a mutual outcome. I feel like that's something that I have to use a lot in my job as well. And it can be really, really easy to just kind of railroad and be like, no, this is the correct way to do it. And this is how I think it should be done. But I reckon that would be a cool skill to sort of pass on to other people, to like negotiate, but also not like, you know, break the ground that you're standing on, if that makes sense.
At yLead, our 5 colours of leadership are red for passion, green for growth, white for integrity, blue for vision, and yellow for service. Which one of these colours currently resonates with you and why?
I feel like if you'd asked me like any other time other than this year, I would have said it was red and like passion, and it's what drives me to do everything I do. And like when I commit to things, I commit because of that passion. But COVID, I reckon like it probably at the moment would have been growth, green. I feel like I've had to learn a lot about myself, about how it's okay to not be like, you know, having social events and that kind of thing and seeing people all the time. I've had to sort of grow into myself in being okay being alone a lot of the time, which has been a really, really cool experience. I'm really, really grateful for it. So yeah, I reckon green's probably the vibe of the moment, and it's my favorite color. So look, it works well.
We're going to do our fast 5. So these are just like a simple one-word answer. Jump off mute. We'll just like fire away. Number 1, beach or forest?
Forest.
Amen, sister. Savory or sweet?
Savory.
Stan or Netflix?
Probably Stan at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Road trip or plane trip?
Road trip.
Early riser or night owl?
Oh, definitely a night owl. I can't wake up to save my life.
So if you mentioned before you have to use a lot of conversation skills in your job, do you want to explain a little bit about what your job is and what you kind of do for work?
Yeah, sure. So I am the campus president of the southern campuses for the Tasmania University Union. So basically, that's just a very long title to say that I basically manage like a committee of people, of like student representatives, and normally we would run events and that kind of thing. But because of the pandemic, obviously we couldn't do that. And it's been really cool to be in this position actually this year, having to like problem solve to find different ways to like make sure students are engaged. But I guess the main thing that I do is I sit on a bunch of UTAS committees and I bring the student perspective to those sort of items that they discuss on their agendas, because there's been a lot of decisions that the university makes where they don't really ask the students what they want or how they feel about certain things that are happening. So during the pandemic, it was like huge, because one of the things that was happening was like, you know, I've just lost my job, I can't pay my rent, how on earth am I meant to finish my assignments on time? Or like people's laptops were breaking, or they didn't have good enough internet to go to classes. And so my like team at the TU, the student union, my team and I, we would go along to all of these meetings and be like, well, look, these students can't actually submit their assignments because they don't have the time, they don't have the resources. And we managed to get things like 5-day extensions for everyone. So you didn't have to request for extensions. We had like your GPA would get frozen. So even if you did really badly in a unit, if you were on like a really high, like an HD or a distinction average, you could choose for that not to be on your transcript so that you could still, get into your honors or still like apply for jobs and that kind of thing. So I guess my job can kind of just be summarized as making sure that students are respected by the people who are in power, because I feel like the people who are in power can quite easily get disconnected from what it's like to be on the ground, and especially what it's like to be a uni student. Like, we've all had some really sort of, rough times, particularly when you're living out of home as well. You've got to learn to live on your own and be yourself and manage your own like money and schedule and all that kind of stuff. That can be pretty overwhelming for a lot of students. So we're there to make sure that there's one less thing for them to worry about, pretty much.
And did you also want to share a little bit about, I guess, your leadership journey since leaving school and kind of how it led into your job and the work that you do now?
When I left school, I felt kind of weird because like when I was college captain, it was so like, you didn't necessarily have to come up with any of your own ideas, like it was encouraged to, but when we were at school, it was like a really rigid leading structure. Like they'd be like, oh, this is when we're having our meetings and you're going to say this, and look, here's the speech that we wrote for you to say at assembly. It was leadership, but it was leadership within like a really set framework. And then when I moved to uni, I was really lucky that I moved into student accommodation. So I lived at John Fisher College in Hobart. And for the next 2 years there, I basically experienced this kind of leadership where you're not there because you're standing up in assembly giving speeches or that kind of thing. But instead it was, I'm here because I'm with my friends and I want to make sure that they're having fun and we've got events to do, and that the staff at the accommodation services are treating us with respect and making sure that all of the problems are being addressed and stuff like that. So when I was in first year, I was like the first year representative on the committee there. And then I was really lucky my second year, I was the president of my college. And from that, I kind of learnt that I'm actually quite a combative person. I never used to think I was. I thought that, if it came to a conflict with like an authority, normally I would kind of just be like, all right, I'll tap out for now. But yeah, I think over the last few years, my leadership has really, really transformed from being a like supportive kind of leadership to now it's something where I'm quite aggressive in standing up for the issues that people want me to help, because in the end, like, not everyone's able to do that. So yeah, and then after I was president, one of my really good friends who worked for the TU at the time, they had helped me deal with a whole bunch of stuff that had happened in college. And they basically said to me, they're like, look, we would really love to have you as part of the team. Would you think about running for elections? And I almost said no, and I'm really, really glad I didn't. So yeah, I've been in the role for nearly a year now, and it's been awesome experience. And I'm actually running again for next year. So I just put in my nomination like half an hour ago, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it if I get elected again. We'll see.
Oh, how exciting. Congratulations. So I guess my next and like kind of final question would be, what would your advice be for someone who is like leaving school, or like a first year out of school student who is looking for ways to get involved in leadership at uni, but might not necessarily know how or what to do or back themselves to get involved?
I reckon my first piece of advice, honestly, is that you have to, and it's so cliche, you have to know yourself before you can go on to try to help other people. If you're not in a space where you feel like you're happy and you're comfortable and you support yourself, then you're just going to crash and burn, honestly, if you try and go out into a leadership role where you're supporting lots and lots of other people. And I can absolutely say that from experience. So I feel like my advice would be, don't do it at all until you're really, really set with yourself, until you know what your beliefs are, and that you're confident enough to hold steady on those against other people as well. And then I think from that point out, really, it just becomes a matter of reaching out to as many people as you can. Don't be shy, whether it be like your student union or whether there's like societies and clubs, that kind of thing. There's always space for leadership on every single level of being at uni, whether it's even just like finding a really good friends group and supporting them throughout your degree. That's a type of leadership as well. But yeah, I think it's really important to accept yourself and your individuality before you go out into the big wide world of university.
I love hearing you talk, and I feel like every single time I get to chat with you, I learn something new, and like, amen, sister. Today I most certainly did. So if our yTeam or like anyone in our community wanted to reach out and have a chat or ask you a question, how could they do that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome if anyone wants to have a chat. You can add me on Facebook and chuck me a message on there, or you can email me if you want to be fancy. I don't know, I can give you my email as well. But yeah, I love having a chat and I've really missed interacting with everyone. So yeah, please, if you've got any questions or if you want to talk about how terrible the prisons are, feel free to chuck me a message and I'd love to hear from you.
Well, that is indeed a wrap on season 2 of yTeam Stories. Thank you so much for your time, Soph. What a way to wrap it up. We will see you next season, maybe.